Welcome back to CFB Cauldron Live. I'm Bubba Wagamuth, and thank you so much for tuning in to our 13th live show tonight. I want to start off the show by sending my prayers and condolences to the Leach family. Mike Leach was a visionary when it came to offensive football, but he's an even better human, and if there is a single positive from this entire horrible situation, it was the fact that we get to hear all these amazing stories from all the lives that Coach Leach touched. So once again, sending my prayers and condolences out to the Leach family and all the Mississippi State family as well. So tonight we're going to talk about bowl games. I'm super excited for bowl season coming up. I was trying to do all 10 to 11 bowl games until next Wednesday. Got a little busy. It was a little more work than I anticipated. Got the first 4 bowl games, so we're going to talk about the 2 games Friday and then the first 2 games on Saturday. We're also going to talk about early signing day. That's next Wednesday, but we have some big commitments coming up before the show next Wednesday and then from now until then. So let's get right into it, and we're going to start off with the first bowl game of the bowl season, which is the Bahamas Bowl. So this Bahamas Bowl is going to be this Friday, so 2 days from now at 11:30 a.m. in the Bahamas. Shocking. It's going to be Miami of Ohio versus UAB. And a quick stats or tidbits about the matchup is that Trent Dilfer was hired as a UAB head coach, but intern coach Brian Vincent will coach the bowl game. So Trent Dilfer, he's going to be the UAB coach starting after the bowl game. So let's get right into it. Miami of Ohio. What does Miami of Ohio do well? Miami of Ohio runs the football pretty average, but Miami of Ohio is a much better team when they run the football well. So in games this year, the Miami of Ohio rushes for over 120 yards. Miami of Ohio is 5-1. Games where Miami of Ohio rushes under 120 yards, Miami of Ohio is 1-5. So it's a 6-6 team. Games where they run for 100 yards or 120 yards or more, they typically win. Games they don't, they typically lose. So Avian Smith is expected to start for the Redhawks at quarterback. Brett Gabbert was the quarterback at points this year. He's been dinged up. They entered the transfer portal. I think he may be back out of the portal, but expect Avian Smith for the Redhawks. Miami of Ohio doesn't have a single running back bell cow, unlike the other team we're about to talk about, but they have a running back by committee approach to running the football. Avian Smith, the quarterback, is actually the leading rusher of the team. Miami, Ohio, like I said, they run the ball. When they run the ball well, they win, but they're pretty average in terms of overall rushing yards per game. They're ranked 77th in the nation. They're 110th in the nation in passing efficiency, so it's not a team that's going to throw the ball, and they're not going to throw the ball very effective either. Avian Smith is not as good of a passer as Brett Gabbert, younger brother Blaine Gabbert, for all of you Jaguars and Bucks fans out there. But Avian Smith isn't going to be a guy that's going to beat you with his arm. He'll take shots every once in a while, but like I said, they're not a very efficient passing team. I think Avian Smith is just hovering around 50% completion percentage. So yeah, Miami, Ohio, you know what they're going to do. If you can stop them, teams have had success when they're able to stop the rushing attack. The offense as a whole, they haven't scored more than 30 points this season against an FBS opponent. They've only scored more than 31 when they hit 31 against FCS Robert Morris. So it's not an explosive offense. The one thing they do well is they don't turn the football over much. They don't make mistakes. They don't shoot themselves in the foot, which does help. If you can not make mistakes, you can keep your offense on the field longer, give your defense more of a rest, and slow the pace of the game down, which is definitely what Miami of Ohio wants to do. As far as the defensive side of the football, they're a solid group, above average in a lot of statistical areas, 34th in scoring defense and 40th flat in rush defense. So it's a good unit, and you may ask, why did you bring up rush defense? Well, it's because UAB is one of the best rushing teams in all of the country, led by Dwayne McBride, but we'll get into that a little later. Much like Miami of Ohio, UAB relies on the run game to account for the vast majority of their offense. Except the difference is, while UAB ranks 77th in yards per game nationally, the Blazers rank 5th, and they're only behind, I believe, Ole Miss, one school that I'm blanking, and then 2 service academies. So that just tells you how good UAB is at running the football. They also have a bell cow running back in Dwayne McBride. Dwayne McBride, I'm sure a lot of big college football fans that follow the sport very closely know who Dwayne McBride is, but if you don't, Dwayne McBride actually leads the country rushing yards for this season. Not only that, but it's not like he's just getting a million carries. Dwayne McBride averages 7.3 yards per carry, which ranks him 3rd nationally. So not only does he lead the country in rushing yards, he's also way, way up there when it comes to yards per carry, so that he's effective when he does get his touches. Backup running back also, Jermaine Brown Jr., has 832 rushing yards, which is impressive because when you have one running back that has almost 2,000 yards on the season, another running back that almost eclipses 1,000 yards is also impressive. It just shows you how well the team runs the football. At quarterback, Dylan Hopkins and Jacob Zeno have both seen considerable playing time. with Hopkins leading the team in most passing statistics. Like I said, it's a team that's going to want to run the football. They're not going to throw it much. They're going to throw it when they're needed. They're going to run every other opportunity that they get. Defensively, the Blazers rank 41st in points per game allowed and 56th in total defense. The rush defense struggles at times. They rank 94th nationally in rush yards per game allowed. So if you're a Miami of Ohio fan, that's definitely encouraging because you know that you have to run the football to win the game. And this defense that you're playing isn't very good when it comes to stopping the run. And the cool thing about UAB, I guess it's not cool if you're a UAB fan, but something interesting about UAB is that every single loss, besides the LSU loss, that's a different category of team, you could call it, but every UAB loss has been a one-score loss. Every UAB win has been a two-score win or more, but 3 or 4 score wins as well are thrown in there. So that means that UAB finished the season 0-5 in one-score games. So if you're a Miami of Ohio fan heading into the Bahamas Bowl, if you keep the game close, you have to feel pretty confident about the way it's going to end up, just because UAB has proven time after time, 5 times actually, that they can't close out these close games. So just think that's funny that UAB has not had a single loss, besides LSU obviously, that has not been a one-score loss. Also, all the bowl games, the 4 bowl games I'm doing today, I'm going to give them a watchability score out of 10. I'm rating this a 7. I don't think it's going to be the most exciting bowl game particularly. 2 teams are going to try to pound and ground the football. But it's the first bowl game of bowl season. That just gets everyone excited. And also, I think this is stylistically, it's a fun matchup. I expect UAB to win the game. I think Dwayne McBride rushes. I just think it's a step up in competition for Miami of Ohio. So I like the Blazers here. I don't know if I like them to cover yet. I don't have any picks this week. I'll probably tweet those out sometime before the game on Friday or Thursday afternoon. So let's head to the next bowl game now. I don't know if there's a bowl game that I'm more excited for this bowl season than the Cure Bowl. And that may sound weird, and this includes the semifinal games as well. I mean, the Cure Bowl is also the only bowl game that's between 2 conference champions. I mean, Troy obviously winning the Sun Belt, and then Conference USA champs UTSA in the Cure Bowl. Super excited for this game. Just a tidbit about this game: both teams enter the bowl game with a 10-game winning streak, and that is also maybe the only other bowl game where both teams come into the game with double-digit winning streaks. So that's another exciting part about this game. Let's get into the Roadrunners. I have a bit of a crush on the Roadrunners as a team. I did a team breakdown on them before the season. I said they go 10-2 and repeat as Conference USA champions, and I also said they would lose to Texas and Houston. That's exactly what happened, and part of the reason is because of this high-powered offense led by Frank Harris. Speaking of Frank Harris, this year he was one of the best quarterbacks in all of the country, throwing for nearly 4,000 yards, finishing the regular season and the conference championship game with 3,865 yards, 31 touchdowns, and completing over 71% of his passes. If Frank Harris stays healthy and finishes the Cure Bowl this upcoming Friday, I expect him to eclipse the 4,000-yard mark on the season. Coming into the year, like I said, I did a team breakdown on UTSA. I was expecting Traylon Smith, the Arkansas transfer, to be a bell cow running back, kind of like Sincere McCormick was. Maybe not quite as talented, but just a guy that UTSA can give the ball to 20 to 30 times a game and really rely on. Traylon Smith, and he was no scrub at Arkansas. He's a rotational back who had a great 2021 season for the team that led the SEC in rushing. Traylon Smith has been kind of banged up for most of the year, just hasn't been fully healthy. So that means that running backs Kevorian Barnes and Brendan Brady have really had to handle the workload for the Roadrunners. Kevorian Barnes averages over 6 yards a carry, and then Brendan Brady, despite less carries than Barnes, has 9 rushing touchdowns compared to Brady's 6 rushing touchdowns. So more than capable backs. Both guys have split duties pretty evenly. I think what really separates this UTSA offense, besides the quarterback, because Frank Harris is amazing, is the wide receiver core. I think it's the best group of 5 wide receiver core, and it's led by 3 guys: Zachary Franklin, Joshua Cephas, and DeCorian Clark. All 3 guys returning from last year. And it's funny because when you look at their 2021 to 2022 stats, they're nearly identical. I mean, slight improvements in a lot of different things. That just shows you how good and consistent this group is. Zachary Franklin, I don't know if anyone watched the Conference USA Championship game against North Texas. Zachary Franklin had a massive game. Every time I tuned into the game, I was watching the whole thing, but every time I just looked down at the TV, Zachary Franklin is just streaking down the middle, scoring on the mean green. So big game by him. He leads the team in most statistical receiving categories, but the other 2 are no scrubs. Great receiving core. I think it's the best in all of Group of 5 football. The offense has not scored less than 30 points in all wins, and they've only scored less than 30 once the entire season. That was against Texas on the road. Once again, same thing with UAB and LSU. You can almost kind of throw that one out the window. But UTSA hung with Texas for a while. Final score was 41-20. the game was closer than that. The Longhorns kind of pulled away towards the end. The UTSA offense ranks 9th in total offense and 12th in scoring offense. So like I said, this offense hums. They're able to throw the ball effectively. They have a great receiving core, and they're able to run the football as well. Defense is a little bit of a different story. Last year, the defense, sometimes the offense wouldn't have their best game last year, and the defense would pick them up. This year, it's been the offense doing most of the heavy lifting. The defense ranks 64th in scoring defense and 90th in yards allowed per game. So though they allow a lot of yards, they're pretty average when it comes to how much they allow opponents to score on them. A good thing for the Roadrunners is that they are 33rd in the country in turnovers gained, so the defense does do a good job of getting the ball back to the offense. And then they're 34th in turnover margin nationally. So let's go to the Trojans, maybe one of the more surprising teams of this past college football season. Trojans were in what a lot of people considered a loaded Sun Belt. You had Coastal Carolina with Grayson McCall returning, Chase Bryce returning at Appalachian State. JMU had an amazing season in their first season from FCS football. But the Trojans, I mean, what a fantastic season. They have 2 losses on the entire year, only 1 conference loss, 1 loss to Ole Miss, and then that little fluky Hail Mary play at the end of the App State game. But John Summer on the Trojans could very easily be 11-1 heading into this game. So if you haven't watched Troy this year, what makes Troy such a good football team? It's the defense. The Troy defense is ranked 8th nationally in points per game allowed and 19th in total defense. They're top 25 in rushing yards allowed and 38th nationally in passing yards allowed. So there isn't one thing they do spectacular, you could say, but there's a solid unit around that limits offenses. They do have one big standout player, Carlton Marshall. He leads I saw a stat earlier. He has the most tackles over a career since 2000. He's 4th nationally in tackles per game. This year, he's a tackling machine in the middle of that Troy defense. Like I said, the defense is the stronger unit of the 2 on the Troy team. The offense isn't quite up to the defensive standards. The offense ranks 80th in scoring offense, which is below average for all of FBS teams. The offense is not great at running the ball, but Kamani Vidal did crack 1,000 yards on the season, so they do have a back that they like enough to give the football enough to get 1,000 yards. So through the first 10 games of the season, the Troy offense only averaged 21.3 points per game. Now, the good thing if you're a Troy fan is the last 3 games, they've averaged 42.3 points per game. You look a little deeper into it, the last 3 teams they played have been Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas State, and Coastal Carolina, all 3 of which rank outside the top 100 in scoring defense. So is it the Troy offense just improving as the season continues? Is it quarterback Gunnar Watson improving? Or is it the fact that they played 3 really bad defenses to cap off the season? You tell me, and I guess we'll figure out, because UTSA ranks 64th in scoring defense, so it's a little bit of a step up in competition. We'll see how the Trojans do. Watchability factor, I have this out of a 10 out of 10. There's no way I'm missing this Cure Bowl. I'm really excited to watch this game. Like I said, both teams enter the game with a 10-game winning streak, and both teams enter the game as conference champions. Super stoked for this one. Maybe, like I said, maybe the most excited I am for any bowl game this entire bowl season. Next up, we have the Fenway Bowl. Well, this is a really weird bowl game. The last one, I was super excited for. Can't wait to watch. This one, I'm obviously going to watch, but I'm watching for different reasons. So both teams will be playing with interim head coaches. The thing that makes this game so weird is former Louisville coach now, Scott Satterfield, is now going to be on the Cincinnati sideline or in the Cincinnati booth. I don't know if he's going to be attending the game at all, but he's going to be the Cincinnati head coach next year. Luke Fickell off to Wisconsin. This game is Saturday at 10 a.m. or at 11 a.m. And as you guessed, Fenway Park. Scott Satterfield left Louisville for Cincinnati, but we do have a matchup of 2 top 35 defenses. I was kind of surprised to figure out this Louisville defense has been that good throughout the season. But just sticking with the Cardinals here, Louisville does have a few opt-outs, which is unfortunate. Malik Cunningham, running back Tyon Evans, and their best wide receiver Tyler Hudson, which may be the second largest opt-out in that whole group, are both opting out, and we have a few more Cardinals that are not going to be playing, whether it be due to opting out or injuries. So this Louisville offense, just when you have such a dynamic playmaker like Malik Cunningham in the backfield, you don't really know what you're going to get when he's not there. Now, we have a little bit of a sample size this season because Cunningham's been beat up multiple times throughout the year. So the backup quarterback's Brock Dahman. Dahman has thrown for 866 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and he's only completed 53% of his passes. This Cardinals offense looks completely different without Cunningham. He's such a special player. He's such a special athlete out there that defenses have to game plan for Cunningham. I don't know what this Cardinals offense looks like without Malik. Besides, hopefully it looks different than the Clemson game where Malik didn't play the second half, and the Kentucky game, because the Cardinals offense did not look good in those two games. Like I mentioned earlier, I was surprised how good the Louisville defense has played this year. I watched Louisville a lot, but just thinking back through it, a lot of it was earlier in the year. I watched them against Syracuse, watched them against Florida State, watched them against UCF, where they had solid performances, but they weren't gangbusters on the defensive side of the football. But Louisville, what do they do great on defense? Each team that's a good unit usually does one thing very well, and Louisville gets after the gets after the quarterback, gets after the passer. Louisville ranks second in sacks per game nationally, only behind Pitt, who has a very good defensive line as well. The Cardinals also rank 19th nationally in scoring defense. And another thing about Louisville is a lot of teams have one sacker that just gets the vast majority of the team's sacks. Think Will Anderson. Think Von Miller back at Texas A&M. Think guys like that, dominant pass rushers. Well, Louisville doesn't have that, but Louisville does a good job of getting sacks by committee. The Cardinals have 4 different players with 5 or more sacks. 14 players on this Louisville roster have 1 sack or more. That is a lot of guys that get to the quarterback. So Louisville can bring multiple people at you. They'll bring exotic blitzes. Their job is to get that quarterback down on the ground. That's their goal as a defense. So let's talk about the Bearcats really quick. So Cincinnati ranks 64th in total offense and 46th in scoring offense. Ben Bryant has been a solid quarterback for Cincinnati this year, transferred over from Eastern Michigan before the season began. Some Cincinnati fans haven't been happy with the quarterback position. I think he's been solid. He's not going to be Desmond Ridder. It also doesn't help that Mike Denbrock, Cincinnati's offensive coordinator from last year, left to go to LSU. But it's been a step down, but I think Ben Bryant's been more than serviceable at the quarterback position for the Bearcats. Cincinnati's really struggled to run the ball at certain times this year. They rank 88th in rush yards per game nationally. But those have some games where they run the ball really well and some games where they don't run the ball well. Example, they ran the ball really well against Tulane in the last regular season game that the Bearcats had. They struggled against UCF and ECU running the ball. I believe they only ran for 35 yards against UCF in that matchup. So they run the ball well. It doesn't seem to have much of a correlation whether on the outcome of the game. But what it does do is it sets the offense behind the 8 ball, making them one-dimensional. The defense is the better of the two units, ranking 23rd in scoring defense and total defense, 23rd in both of those statistical categories. They're also a team that gets after the quarterback. They rank 20th in sacks per game. So you have 2 teams that are aggressive that like to take down the quarterback. So like I said, this game is unique just because of the opt-outs at the positions and the head coaching situations. We're going to have 2 teams with interim coaches, and then one of the coaches is going to be on the opposite sideline from all of the coaches that he's coached with the entire year and all the players he's recruited to come to the place that he just left. But I have the watchability of this at a 5 out of 10. I don't know how good the product's going to be on the field. I am leaning to betting Cincinnati in this game. Last I checked, the Cardinals were a 1 or 1.5 point favorite wherever you looked. I just think without Malik Cunningham, it's a completely different Louisville offense that struggles to move the football down the field. So the watchability score on this one is a 5 out of 10. Last bowl game we're going to get to tonight is going to be the Las Vegas Bowl. Once again, another bowl game I'm super excited to watch is upcoming Saturday. It's going to be Saturday at 2:30, and you guessed it, Las Vegas. We have Florida versus Oregon State. Both these teams are top 30 rushing offenses in the country. So you know what you're going to get, especially with the Gators, and I'll tell you why. So Florida's going to be playing without a few important pieces to their offense. They're going to be playing without Anthony Richardson, starting quarterback for Florida. Osiris Torrance, who may be the best interior offensive lineman in all of college football, probably going to be a first-round draft pick coming up this April or May. And also wide receiver Justin Shorter, who leads second in the team in receiving yards this season. So Florida, a lot of people know that Jalen Kitna got kicked off the team, who was the backup quarterback throughout the vast majority of the season for the Gators. So Jack Miller, the former Ohio State quarterback, will be making his first collegiate start. And he's also going to be making his first collegiate throws, I believe. If not, he's definitely making his first collegiate throws for the Gators, if not in general. So it'll be interesting to see third-string quarterback. He's also got dinged up earlier in the season. I believe he had a thumb issue that brought him back down to the 3rd on the depth chart. But now he gets his opportunity to start, show if he's the quarterback of the future for the Gators. So we know that Florida's going to heavily rely upon the run game. And then these two guys right here, Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, the younger brother of Jaguars running back Travis Etienne. Freshman Etienne actually ranks 15th nationally in yards per carry, which is a great clip. Trevor, when he gets the ball, does a better job of getting more yards per play than Montrell Johnson. But like I said, both backs are really, really good. Both backs are the thriving force behind this offense. The Florida defense has struggled throughout most of the year, though. And a lot of it comes down to the lack of depth along the defensive line. Florida's been playing thin, and then Brenton Cox gets kicked off the team late in the season after the Georgia game. That thins you out as well. And also Lloyd Summeron, I believe another defensive lineman, have entered the transfer portal for the Gators. Now, the positive news for the Florida fan base is that Gervon Dexter is going to be playing in the Las Vegas Bowl. He's a potential first-rounder, probably a second-round pick, but could sneak his way into that first-round range, and he's playing. So kudos to him. I love to see guys that go out and put on for their school and the last opportunity that they get. But not only that, he's a great player, but he's also going to help with depth because Florida is struggling at the defensive line. Gators rank 90th in scoring defense and 103rd in total defense, which is yards allowed per game. They struggle to get after the quarterback, ranking 97th in sacks per game. Now, something that Florida defense does do well is the Florida defense does get turnovers and give the offense opportunity to get the football back. Florida finished the season 9th in turnover margin and 10th in turnovers gained. So, like I said, the defense does a good job of getting the football. So, for the Beavers, they have one opt-out on their side, tight end Luke Musgrave, which is a big loss. He's one of the top tight ends entering the draft this year, but he will not be playing in the Las Vegas Bowl. So, something interesting when looking at the Beavers this year is their scoring disparity between when they win games and losing games. Now, obviously, when teams lose games, they're probably going to be scoring more points than when they win games. That's how the sport's played. But Oregon State has a massive disparity between wins and losses. So when Oregon State loses games, they only average 17 points per game. And then wins, they average 37.5 points per game. That's more than a 20-point difference between wins and losses. So it seems like if we're just looking at this from 1,000 miles out, a very broad view, it seems like Oregon State wants a high-scoring game, whereas Florida may want a lower-scoring game because of their defensive struggles. Oregon State is 37th nationally in scoring offense, which is a little higher than I thought it was going to be. 103rd in passing yards per game. That's no surprise. Damian Martinez is the workhorse running back of... There he is right there. Damian Martinez is the workhorse running back of this Oregon State offense. He's a freshman All-American according to The Athletic. I couldn't find the AP freshman All-American list. I'm not even sure if it's come out yet. But Damian Martinez is a legit running back. True freshman. He's going to be a bell cow, not only this year, not only in this game, but going forward for that Beavers offense. So the quarterback is Ben Gulbranson. He took over for injured quarterback Chance Nolan. Ben Nolan is a little bit more of a running threat than Gulbranson is, but Gulbranson reminds me a lot of Jack Cohn from Notre Dame and Wisconsin. Gulbranson isn't the best athlete, but he just finds ways to make plays, whether it's off-platform throws or extending plays just long enough to get off that throw that moves the chains. Gulbranson is a good fit for this Oregon State offense, I believe. Oregon State's defense is 20th in rush defense, which is important because, like I said, Florida's 15th in rush offense. Florida's starting a third-string quarterback. Florida's going to be without one of their best wide receivers. Florida's going to run the football a lot. Expect these two guys right here to get 20-plus carries each. I don't expect them to ask Jack Miller to do too much in this game. So if you're Oregon State, you have to sell out to stop the run. Make Florida beat you in the air. If they do it, kudos to them. But Oregon State isn't a great pass defense. They rank 74th in yards allowed per game. The watchability score on this one I have as a 9 out of 10. If we had everyone playing and completely healthy, it would probably be 10 out of 10. One of the top bowl games of the cycle for me, at least. But a few of the opt-outs changed the way the game's played. I think it's going to be a little stylistically different. Florida was going to run the football whether Osiris Torrance were playing and Anthony Richardson were playing or not. But this just makes Florida a little more one-dimensional on offense. So we'll see how the Beavers play on the defensive side of the football. So that is the 4 first bowl games of bowl season. Super excited to get into that, or we may talk about more bowl games next week as well. We're also going to get into more transfer portal stuff next week. Just thought I would save that for a future date, let more kids get into the portal before we make leaping assumptions on that. So let's talk about recruiting. So we haven't talked a lot about recruiting on this show, mostly because we started between week 0 and week 1, so we're just getting into live football. It's exciting. You can talk about recruiting all offseason. That's what we're going to do because I believe college football is not only talent acquisition, but a talent development business. But talent, half of that is talent acquisition. So it's super important to get the best possible players onto your campus. The first player we're going to be talking about is Samson Okulola. He goes to Thayer Academy, which is in Braintree, Massachusetts. Not a football powerhouse, but more of a academic powerhouse, I guess you could say. He's committing tomorrow at 4:30 from his school. He's a 5-star offensive lineman, ranked 3rd in his class as far as offensive I believe offensive linemen and tackles go. The top 3 offensive linemen in this class are tackles according to 247 Sports and the 247 Sports Composite. This really seems to be coming down to two teams. It seems to be a Miami versus Florida battle. We've seen that multiple times in this cycle, whether it's Malik Bryant, whether it's Jaden Rashada, whether it's Cormani McClain. We've seen a lot of battles come down to Miami and Florida. Miami has long been considered the favorite in this recruitment, but Sampson's coming off of 2 Florida visits, including one this past weekend. So Sampson took a midweek Florida visit a few weeks back. After taking a Miami visit on November 4th, which was unofficial, he took its official in Miami during the summer, I believe sometime around June when Miami had a big recruiting weekend. But after that midweek visit to Florida, which was unofficial, he took his official visit to Florida this past weekend. I think there's a lot of Florida smoke here. I know a lot of people still think Miami is in the lead of this recruitment. I would not be surprised at all if he goes to Florida. I'm actually calling him a Florida lean here. He also posted a video on his Twitter. It's about a minute long that the Florida videography team made for him of a summary of his visit. I just think there's a lot of smoke here. He's taken 2 visits to Florida without taking visits to any other school. I think Billy Napier and the Gators are in a pretty good position here. I know Miami coaches, Coach Cristobal and Coach Mirabal, who's the offensive line coach, went in home. But 2 visits, it just seems like there's a lot of smoke training for Florida. I calling Samson Akulola a Florida lean here. The next guy we're going to talk about is also 5-star edge defender and this top uncommitted prospect in this class, according to the 247 Sports Composite. Damon Wilson from Venice High School, Venice, Florida, just south of Bradenton and IMG Academy. So Damon Wilson, second-ranked edge rusher in this class, only behind Alabama's Keon Keeley. So who's in the mix for Damon Wilson? So it seems like this one's come down to Georgia and Ohio State. Those are the 2 schools he's shown the most interest in. Ohio State's been considered the favorite since the beginning of the season. He went to the Ohio State Notre Dame game, along with that big recruiting trip that Ohio State had that weekend. But it seems like the Dogs are kind of picking momentum here on the trail. He was at the Tennessee game for Georgia. He was at the Michigan game, but I don't know if that helped or hurt Ohio State's case. But it seems like Georgia's trending in this recruitment a little bit. I'm going to call him a Georgia lean. A lot of that's because because of Georgia doesn't have a ton of defensive linemen committed to this class. And you know Kirby Smart is going to get his. That's just the way this Georgia program is built, and that's the way this Georgia program has recruited lately. And a great thing that Georgia can do to Damon Wilson to try to sell the Georgia vision and sell the vision that Kirby Smart has for him. It's just the amount of defensive linemen that Georgia has pumped out and put in the league over here these past few years. So I'm calling Damon Wilson a Georgia lean to this point in his recruitment. Next up, we have James Smith. James Smith, Carver High School, Montgomery, Alabama. Not the last guy from Carver High School we're going to be talking about tonight. He's a second-ranked defensive lineman, so the way 247 Sports splits it up, they go edge rushers and they go defensive linemen. So if you're a 5 tech inside, so 5'3", 1, 4, 2, you're going to be considered a defensive lineman. If you're more of a wide 9, you're going to be considered an edge rusher. So James Smith, second defensive lineman. He's a big guy, 6'3", 310 pounds. This morning, actually, Steve Whitfong, the director of recruiting for 247 Sports, put in a crystal ball for James Smith for the Crimson Tide in Alabama, for James Smith to stay home. Other contenders in this recruitment are Florida, Georgia, and Auburn. So the visit schedule for Smith has been, he visited Florida officially in October, officially visited Auburn in June, and also officially visited Georgia in June. His official to Alabama was this past weekend, along with teammate Quay Rousseau, who we'll talk about in 1 second. But I'm calling this in Alabama. I think he ends up in Bama. There's just way too much smoke here. And the other thing is Alabama has a pretty large defensive line class committed already. They already have 5 defensive linemen and edges committed. The number could get all the way up to 7. So it's going to be a big haul in the defensive line room for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide, especially if they land James Smith. And then also our last prospect, Quay Rousseau, also from Carver High School. I honestly feel really bad for the offensive linemen that have to block these 2 on the same team. Very similar with Derek LeBlanc and John Walker for Osceola High School down in Kissimmee, Florida. But just 2 5-star defensive linemen casually walked up against a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds. Wouldn't want that to be me. But yeah, Quay Rousseau, he's the third-ranked edge in the class behind Keon Keeley and behind Damon Wilson, who we mentioned earlier. 22nd ranked prospect nationally. Steve Whitfong also put in a crystal ball for the Crimson Tide this morning on Quay Rousseau. And since they're teammates, they have the same exact Final Four schools, and they also have the same exact visit schedule. So the visit schedule was Alabama this past weekend, Florida October 14th, which was the LSU game, Auburn in June, and also Georgia in June. So I think he probably ends up on the Crimson Tide also. A crystal ball this late in the cycle really kind of indicates where student athlete is trending. I think Quay Rousseau and James Smith both end up in Alabama's defensive line room. So that's all we have tonight. Also, David Hicks. David Hicks is a linebacker. I didn't add him on here because he's down to 2 schools. I think he's going to Texas. He was committed to Texas A&M earlier in the cycle. Decommitted. Seems like he's going to be a Longhorn. All 3 or all 4 now with David Hicks. So Damon Wilson, James Smith, Quay Rousseau, and Anthony Hicks are all going to be committing on the 21st, while Samson Ankulola is committing tomorrow night at 4:30. So that's all we have for tonight. Really happy the bowl season's here. Excited about early signing day next Wednesday. If you have any questions, if you'd like me to talk about anything in particular, leave it in the comments.